Sunday. I know I released it on Saturday last week, but I thought I would continue with my shelf tours. So this is volume 3. Hello everyone, welcome to and welcome back to Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark. And once again, I hope very much you're doing well and enjoying your weekend. So we've already done this one, this one, this one, and this one. And now we're going to do this one down here, which you can't really see, but it doesn't matter because if I show you, it will spoil the surprise about what's there, won't it? So I'm only going to do this one. I'm going to try and keep it shorter because I do realize that these videos have been so far quite long. So maybe I'll just keep it to the individual sections. So let's start off, not with the books I'm pulling out just yet, because I think it's better to do them all together as they kind of fall into the same topic. But we'll start off with two more Folio Society books that I've got. There's this one here, which is My Early Times by Charles Dickens. And it's quite nice, I think. Look at that. Very smart, isn't it? And there's a wonderful watercolour there inside, as well as a nice portrait of the young Dickens in his early life. So it is autobiography rather, from Dickens, talking about his early life, and there are several illustrations and specimens, for example, of his handwriting, or in this case, his shorthand. Some engravings and things from London at the time, of course, he was living. So that's jolly nice, I think. It's from 1989, this particular Folio Society edition. And the next folio one we have is Agatha Christie, The Complete Miss Marple Short Stories. I think we've probably seen this before on this channel there. It looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Daggers and poison and guns and arrows and all sorts. So it's very nice condition, this. It's, of course, second hand. It was given to me, I believe, I can't remember if it was for birthday or Christmas from my parents. So it's very nice. And this is from 2005. So it's quite recent. Well, when you're my age, 2005 is quite recent. And there are some rather simplistic line drawings, but they're kind of cute, I guess, almost kind of caricaturish. There's a few in here. Oh, there we go. I guess it's Miss Marple, probably in a fish shop. So yeah, it's nice, and I haven't read them all yet, but I do hope to maybe in September if we continue doing Dictember. So next up we have a rather strange book which I can't remember getting. I think perhaps I got it while I was at university because it fits in with my course, and I don't know, perhaps why I've still got it, I don't know. You probably can't read it there, but it's a George Allen Unwin book by Giuseppe Boffa called Inside the Khrushchev Era. So I'm not sure how interesting that would be to people. I don't even know if I would actually ever read it again. Cost me £3 by the looks of it. It's translated from the Italian by someone called Carl Manzani, and does it have a date in it? Yeah, 1960. 1960. So I guess it's the first. Yeah, it's the first English edition of this particular book. The Italian book was written in 1959, and the original title was La Grande Svolta. So it's a bit different, isn't it, from the Inside the Khrushchev Era. No illustrations, of course, just looks in at the Khrushchev era. And it's just divided into two parts. First part's called The Great Change and includes things like the Martians, the decisive years, the 20th Congress, the origins of the cult, post-war conflicts, the Great Resurgence, pro and con on the 20th, and Part 2, The Open Road, the era of Sputnik, the push to the East, productivity and communism, the second victory of Kolkhoz, Who Lives Better, the Cultural Revolution, State and Democracy, the School Reform, and the 21st Congress. So all very exciting stuff there. I'm sure you were enraptured by my discussing it. Okay. Now, next up we have a series of books, all from the same publisher, which is this publisher called Greenhill Books, and they specialise in military history, and I've had these for years. I've had all of these since I was probably around the age of 11, when I got really interested in military history and things like that. And this one is by Jack Weller, and it's called Wellington at Waterloo, and it's part of their Napoleonic library. I don't know if they still make them, and it is a look at well, basically, I suppose, Wellington at Waterloo. Did I say Napoleon at Waterloo? No, I said Napoleonic Library, didn't I? Wellington at Waterloo, yeah. So, I mean, they're very nice books. I've got a signature in there that I wrote on it. I don't know why. And yeah, judging by the signature, it's pretty old. I would say probably 11 years old. So, that I wrote it. So that's a good 30-something years ago. Applauded on its first publication, this book has become a classic account of the famous battle, much sought after by collectors. The result of the battle in 1815 is familiar to all, but the manner of Napoleon's defeat and how it was planned and executed are not so well known. Jack Weller, internationally known for his writing on weapons, tactics and military history, and the author of 2 companion books, Wellington in the Peninsula and Wellington in India, studies every move and counter-move of the battle, recreating not only the actions and tactics of the 2 great leaders, but the epic engagements and clashes between the troops themselves that were pivotal for victory or defeat. The author also studies the related battles of Quatre Bras and Ligny. He takes the reader with him onto the battlefield of Waterloo, a terrain whose features are still recognisable today, and which is brought to life for the reader by detailed maps and by the author's vivid and riveting descriptions of the progress of the fighting. This completely original approach, appreciated by the Times Literary Supplement on the book's first publication, strikes us fresh today, and this new edition, with an introduction specially written for it by the author, will be eagerly read by military enthusiasts and general readers alike. So, Jack Weller, an American historian, seems to have been born in 1913, so I doubt he's still with us. Still, you never know. He was when this was published in 1992, though, so... And he was still writing with his wife, apparently, so there we go. Now, the others are all on the same theme, and as I say, still by the same publisher. Let's start with this one. I've shown it before on this channel. It's Shaka Zulu by E.A. Ritter. It's the rise of the Zulu Empire, and it's a very good book and a very interesting biography, which I plan to reread as part of Historathon, a year-long reading event hosted by Vin from Revenant Reads and a host of other wonderful co-hosts. E.A. Ritter's Shaka Zulu, the great biography of the Zulu king whose achievement rivaled those of his contemporary Napoleon in Europe, has established itself as a classic of military history. Shaka was born in 1797, the illegitimate son of a minor chieftain. Branded with this shame, he strove even harder to execute the rigorous duties required of Zulu youths. Excelling in everything he undertook, he soon proved himself a born leader. Gathering about him in an area only half the size of New York City, a nucleus of some 500 untrained tribesmen, he built up an immense army of skilled and highly disciplined warriors, conquering and pacifying a territory larger than Europe, all in the space of 12 years. The ruthlessness necessary for moulding his army led to merciless use of an instant death penalty for the slightest disobedience, yet he won the fanatical devotion of his people. But as his reign progressed, his practice of summary death and mutilation, at his personal whim for military and civilian alike, led to countless stories of his atrocities and began to foster an opposition which finally flared into action. At the peak of his career, when he was about to give his empire the benefits of Western civilization, Shaka was assassinated by his jealous brothers, and within 50 years his work was undone. But assassination, usurpation, and his own excesses cannot dim the savage greatness of the man and the king, which emanates so strongly from the pages of this book. So there we go. And it is a good read, I have to say, it's excellent. So I would recommend it if you have an interest at all in Southern African history, or Shaka Zulu. So there we go. Kind of looks like inside there. And now the other books are all either introduced, edited, or written by Ian Wright. Ian Knight, rather, got Ian Wright on the brain. Ian Knight, who's an expert in Zulu history. One of them is, he writes the introduction to Bertram Mitford's Through the Zulu Country, its battlefields and people. And it's a very interesting book. Long sought after by Anglo-Zulu war enthusiasts, Bertram Mitford's Through the Zulu Country is both a classic travelogue and an important source book. Zululand has always held a particular fascination, a mixture of high adventure and tragedy, and Mitford, a Cape civil servant and writer of boys' adventure stories, was amongst the first to feel its lure. In 1882, just 3 years after the last shots of the war were fired, he went on an ox wagon pilgrimage to the battlefields. He visited all the important sites: Isandlwana, Rorke's Drift, Lobane, Kambula, Nizani, Gingidlo, Eshau, the Prince Imperial's monument, and Ulundi, at a time when the debris of war was still visible on the surface, and in some cases the Zulu dead still lay unburied on the field. Mitford spoke to many important Zulus, including Prince Dabulamanzi, who led the attack on Rorke's Drift, and the famous chief Sihayo and his son Shaka Zulu, as well as ordinary Zulus who participated in the battles. He quotes their account of the fighting verbatim. For this reason alone, Through the Zulu Country provides invaluable insights into the fighting from the Zulu point of view. But more even than this, Mitford's amiable, evocative style, his descriptions of the wild beauty of old Zululand in the last years before European exploitation changed it forever, and of the exciting and humorous adventures that befell him on his travels, made this book a delight for historians and armchair travellers alike. And this is definitely has to be a reread. I don't think I've picked it up since I was about 11 or 12, so I'll probably appreciate it much more now, actually. So, yeah, wonderful. Again, it's obviously they've all got dust covers. This one survived better than the next couple you're going to see anyway. Another one by Ian Knight. Unfortunately, the dust jacket's a bit ripped there. Is By Orders of the Great White Queen, campaigning in Zululand through the eyes of the British soldier in 1879. By Orders of the Great White Queen presents first-hand eyewitness accounts and reminiscences by participants in the Anglo-Zulu War. Many officers who fought in the war wrote memoir later in their careers, and these books have long been sought after as first-hand source material. Most have been out of print for many years and are collector's items, and yet all are of vital importance to the understanding of this fascinating conflict. Now, Ian Knight, author of Brave Men's Blood, which you'll see in a minute, the most comprehensive account of the war yet published, has carefully selected the most interesting and important Zulu war reminiscences into one volume. The extracts range from the recollections of commanding officers like Colonel Evelyn Wood to leading officers such as Hamilton Brown, Harrison, Bengock Grenfell, and lesser figures such as Smith Dorrien, who nonetheless had fascinating stories to tell. There are accounts of great battles such as Isandlwana, Hobane, Kambula, and Ulundi, all vividly evoked by eyewitnesses, as well as minor incidents and scares and the drudgery of the day-to-day campaigning. Even a little of the humour of camp life is included. So there we go. In each case, it's continued over. In each case, Ian Knight has linked and evaluated the accounts and provided a brief outline of each soldier's career and his role in the war. The result is a vivid picture of the Anglo-Zulu War as it seemed to the men who fought it, an entertaining read for the general reader, and an essential reference for serious students of the war. So there we go. Fortunately, I'm a bit annoyed that's ripped, but what can one do? You know, it's moved around a bit. So it's okay inside, still looks good. So that's all right then. I don't know, when was it? 1992. So I would have been 12 because I probably got it pretty much after it came out. So they mentioned in that book that he was the author of Brave Men's Blood, and that one I also have here, which is a nice big book there. And it is pretty much, as it says there, the epic of the Zulu War, and it goes through all the major battlefields and battles, the things that took place. Brave Men's Blood is the most comprehensive history of the famous Anglo-Zulu War yet published, the result of years of research in Britain, South Africa, France, and the United States and Australia. It consists of more than 260 contemporary illustrations, most of which have never been published anywhere in the world before. This is at the time of writing, I'm sure they have since. Of those few previously seen, most appeared in highly specialist journals with a limited circulation. Not just pretty pictures, the illustrations have been carefully integrated with the text and have full captions assessing their historical significance. For the first time, great care has been taken to trace pictures of Zulu commanders, personalities and warriors, and Brave Men's Blood therefore represents the most balanced image of the war available. The illustrations of weapons, uniforms and men in action bring to life the experiences of soldiers on both sides, creating an almost tangible sense of life in the field and drama of combat itself. Only the most accurate contemporary sketches and engravings have been chosen to depict the battles, presenting a unique record of the campaign. The care with which the photographs have been collected is matched by the thoroughness, I can't read. I'm wondering if I need reading glasses, actually, of the text. Although aimed at the general reader, the text provides a concise history of the Zulu state and the causes of war, making use, continued again, of the latest research. Draws attention to aspects of the war ignored by other works, such as the part played by colonial troops in the fighting and the little-known cross-border raids. For the first time, the Zulu strategy and tactics are given equal treatment with those of the British. Inevitably, however, it is the great battles themselves, the Sandluana, Rorke's Drift, Nyazane, Gingolohowa, Hobane, Kambula and Ulundi, which take centre stage in the drama, and the author has drawn upon his extensive field research to provide further illumination. Many students of the period may be surprised by the new interpretations of some parts of the battles. In addition, Brave Men's Blood includes a full set of campaign and battle maps drawn by the best cartographers working in the field. So there we go. And it is actually, chock-a-block with photographs and illustrations, as you can see there. Some drawings that the troops did, and all sorts, and of course pictures of people like this chap here, Gonville Bromhead, played by Michael Caine in the film Zulu, and all sorts of photographs of Zulus themselves, and information about their weapons and tactics and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool. So next up and last of the Zulu books is Nothing Remains But to Fight, The Defence of Rorke's Drift, 1879 by Ian Knight. So this one just concentrates on the Battle of Rorke's Drift, which is the battle depicted in the film Zulu. Have a look at that. There you go. Very famous. I think it's one of Lady Butler's paintings there. More Victoria Crosses, the highest British award for valour, were awarded for one night of blood and fire in 1879 than before. Since, that night has become immortalised in the mythology of the British Empire as Rorke's Drift, the unforgettable story of how a handful of soldiers held this remote mission station against overwhelming numbers of Zulu warriors in the Anglo-Zulu War. Ignoring the exaggerated stories of legend, many of which have found their way into print masquerading as fact, Ian Knight, author of the best-selling Brave Men's Blood, combines contemporary eyewitness accounts, some hitherto obscure, with the results of recent archaeological surveys of the site in order to present the story of what actually happened, a story all the more remarkable for being true. He considers the battle from both the British and Zulu perspectives, suggesting reasons for the failure of the Zulu assault, looks at the subsequent history of the Rorke's Drift site from the 1880s up to the recent museum work, and recounts the destinies that lay in store for the survivors of the battle. Not only the heroes and defenders of Rorke's Drift, but also some of the Zulu attackers. Nothing Remains But to Fight includes a wide range of illustrations, some previously unpublished, as well as the better-known photographs of contemporary with the battle. Maps follow and explain the various stages of the assault and defence. This is the first detailed, thorough and comprehensive account of what really happened at Rorke's Drift. And you've already seen Lady Butler's painting there, but again, we have photographs and all the key players, drawings of the battle itself, sketches as well of Rorke's Drift and things like that. So pretty cool. Again, it's got a dust jacket, so it has a nicer kind of cover inside. So yeah, gosh, I've had these for years now. Quite nostalgic looking at them. Okay, next up, that's the Zulus done. We have a book here called, you can see I don't really have everything in particular order, but there's a book here by a chap called Seb Falk, and it's called The Light Ages, A Medieval Journey of Discovery, and it's also on my list for Historathon in the next quarter. So what is it? Does it actually tell us? I mean, I know roughly what it is, but is there a blurb? Not really. On the back, though, it says, compulsive, brilliantly clear, and superbly well written. It's a charismatic evocation of another world. So Falk uses the monk of John of Westwick to weld us into the medieval ways of imagining as well as thinking. I can't recommend it highly enough. That's from Ian Mortimer. And Tom Holland said, wonderful, required reading for anyone who thinks that the Middle Ages were a dark age. And then Felipe Fernandez Armesto says, Falk takes barely surviving fragments of evidence about an almost forgotten astronomer in a storm-chilled cliff-top cell to conjure the vast world of invention in the late Middle Ages, profoundly scholarly, wonderfully lucid, and grippingly vivid. And then Jim Al-Khalili says, hugely enlightening and important. So it is looking at how the Dark Ages were not really dark at all, and were instead a period of discovery. And I haven't read it yet. It was a gift. It also has some lovely illustrations in the middle of this here. Yeah, you can see beautiful photographs of things and all sorts. I'm looking forward to this. It should be interesting. Next up, we have another book that's been with me for a while, certainly since my school days, which is the new Golden Treasury of English verse. I don't know, who is it? Macmillan, by the looks of it, I suppose. So it is literally a collection of English poetry from who? From Anonymous. Okay, John Gower being the first one there, from the middle 14th century, all the way through to Ted Hughes of the middle 20th century. So, and all poems are chosen by a chap called Edward Leeson. So it should be interesting to have a look or to rediscover, because as I said, this carried me through school. So yeah, I was 14. Came out in 1980. First off, this edition, newer edition, was published in 1994, and that would have been about when I bought it. So yeah, there we go. Next up, we have a book by one of my favourite historians, and that's John Julius Norwich, or Lord Norwich, and it's called Shakespeare's Kings. The Wars of the Roses, the Battle of Bosworth, and the Princes in the Tower, the century and a half covered by Shakespeare's history plays. From the recently authenticated Edward III to Richard III, is so full of incident that dramatic license might seem unnecessary, but as this fascinating survey of the period shows, Shakespeare's dramas, which have influenced popular history for centuries, are prone to depart from the facts. By illuminating the enthralling political, military and dynastic events which supplied the raw material for the greatest dramatist in the English language, and the artistic, political and practical considerations that determined his approach to that material, John Julius Norwich does a great service both to lovers of traditional narrative history and to all those interested in Shakespeare and his work. So there we go again, some illustrations, pictures and things like that. So I think that would be interesting also for the next period of Historathon. Although, you see, that's an interesting query I'll have to put to Vin, because although it looks at Shakespeare's Kings, which of course were written after the next quarter, However, the events that take place in them do fall within that quarter. So this could be an interesting one that straddles the two quarters, so to speak. Okay, next up, don't worry, there's only a couple left, and it's not that much shorter, is it? I must be rabbiting on. Next up, I have an older edition of Tom Brown's School Days by Thomas Hughes. A very fun book about Tom Brown, who goes to rugby school, and his experiences there, primarily dealing with the bully Flashman, later made famous in the Flashman novels by George MacDonald Fraser. Again, it has some nice illustrations there. I'm not sure this is super old, but I think probably from the 1950s. Yeah, this is 1957 edition, but it's nice. They did do nice books back then. You know, there's even a little picture of the type of desk that was used at the school, and there are other colour. Oh, can't find any now. Other colour plates and things in it as well, which is pretty cool. So, and next up we have a book which was extremely popular back in the day, and it is a good book, and I haven't gone back to it, so maybe I should. And it's Longitude, the true story of how a lone genius who solved the greatest scientific problem of his time. And it's all about the quest for finding longitude, and John Harrison's work to come up with a timekeeping device that would be accurate enough to allow British sailors to determine correct longitude and therefore be ahead of all their rivals. It's a wonderful work by David Sobel there. So, and last up we have, again, nice little old pocket edition. They probably, can you see what that is? Yeah, just about The Wind in the Willows. Oh. Got some Elvis hairs in the pages there. This is a second-hand book, but it's got an inscription inside it there, with best wishes to somebody from Auntie Beth and Uncle Bill. June 1941. So that's nice, isn't it? Again, not super old, but nice enough, and it's just a lovely little pocket reading edition of The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. And yeah, and it's got a little advertisement in there for a play based on The Wind in the Willows called Toad of Toad Hall by A.A. Milne, for 3 shillings, maybe? Would that not be expensive? I don't know. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. So there we go. That's that shelf. That's your lot for this edition of my shelf tour, and I will be back with this, of course, next week, and I'm sure I shall see you all again very soon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Do take care. Bye bye.